Good morning, and I'm still in Montevideo in Uruguay, and I thought I'd come to find out where the first Football World Cup was held. It was here in the stadium, and it was in 1930, which is quite ironic because the bar is called 1930 Bar, and this is the entrance, and at the moment there is a lot of work going on. So the taxi driver has just dropped me off here, and I'm just gonna have a walk around to see if there's anything I can see of the stadium itself. Why not? So as I said, there's a lot of work going on, and I just can't get in to see the entrance of this place at all. I'm hoping I can get around here. There's a gate. Let's have a wander. So why did Uruguay have the World Cup in 1930? What's so special? Well, before the Football World Cup, the only time that the world played football was at the Olympics, and in 1924, oh, you can't get in, security. Ooh, she didn't like me. But yeah, 1924, 1928, the football in the Olympics was won both times by Uruguay. So they class themselves as world champions. They won gold. So in 1930, which was the centennial of the country's independence, they thought, let's build a stadium, invite the world to play football, and they did. So at the time of the World Cup, there was only 13 teams, and 4 of them were from Europe, and there was a lot of countries weren't too keen on the idea. There's a great depression going on around the world, and Uruguay actually said, because they were quite rich at the time, we'll pay for you. We'll pay for your transport, accommodation. Right, there's a lot of TV production work just packing up. So I've just Googled it, and see me, there's been 2 massive pop concerts going on, which has been filmed, and they weren't of anybody that I know. So the Latin American big pop stars, and so far this is the only really good view of the stadium I've seen. Let's go a bit further. So the 4 European teams that came over was France, Belgium, Romania and Yugoslavia, and it would have taken them 2 weeks by boat to get here. Right, there's a statue up there, so I'm assuming that's a football statue. Right, this is a statue of Attilio Narancio, who was at the time the president of the Uruguayan Football Association, and he is the one that pushed for Uruguay to hold the very first World Cup. So without him, it might have started a lot later. Wow. Buenas. So a lot of guys just sitting around in the sunshine. It is just after 12, so it is lunchtime. So when you compare the World Cup of this year, we've got 48 teams, and back then the 13 teams that came over, there was only 3 stadiums being played, as well as this one, all in Montevideo. So there is no long distance flights between each match. I mean, I walked around a bit further. There didn't seem to be anything to say this is where the first World Cup happened, or nothing. I mean, I've heard there's a small football museum dedicated to it, which I assume will be at the front. And I've just found the museum. It looks small. Just see how much it is to get in. So it's 350 pesos, which works out about £7. Oh, I've got to keep an eye on my budget for Uruguay because it is an expensive country. Otherwise, if it had been a bit lower, then I would have gone in. Oh, there is something there. So here's a little plaque to say Estadio Centenario. So this will be to say this is the first World Cup in Uruguay. I like that. Time to take a few photographs. So that plaque, and I've just did a quick translation, marks July 1930 when the stadium was completed, which was exactly 100 years after Uruguay's first constitution. I think I'll go a bit further up and there's a park just opposite. I'll head for that. There's some workmen that's just came out of that gate and I asked very nicely if I could go in and do like two seconds of filming, and he's done no. Go to the museum, you can have a look through there. Oh no. Oh well. But this took 1 year to build. And I think I've been around most of it. And that park is just over there, but I'm just going to try and see if I can get into the stadium for free. So there's a gate open. So I have done a quick loop. That's the main entrance over there. If I can bring the camera high enough to look through. Now obviously I can't see a thing, and I'm hoping that you can. There you go. I mean, I'm not going to give up. See if I can get in somehow. I tried. Guy behind us just said, "We're closed, leave." But just over there is the bar, 1930 bar, so I have done one big loop. But I've seen the stadium from the outside. I've seen a plaque. I've seen the entrance to the museum. I've been here, so I'm happy. Right, let's go to the park. There's a lot of learner drivers around here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Somebody just getting to one there. This must be a safe place to learn how to drive. I mean, the roads are quieter. You got the stadium behind me, and I've walked across the road to the Parque Batlle, and as I was coming, there was a load of tourists taking pictures of this, so I thought I'd come along. And it is a representation of Uruguay founders and how they worked with oxen, a wagon. All the tourists are down there. So it's the Monumento a la Carrete. Oh, look at that. Nice little pond in front of it. Them oxen are quite detailed. Oh, there's a bloke at the back on a horse. That's a better view of the monument. Yep, there's the tourists. And more learner drivers. They're all over the place. Now I think this is all a bit modern art with a few pictures of old Montevideo. So I found one picture of the stadium from 1980. A lot of people in there. Picture of the construction of the park, 1912, and then 1917 with all their fancy hats. I bet they would have been warmer than suits. Right, time to go somewhere else. So if you've been following me, you'll know that in the last video I had to cut short because it was laundry day. The life of a backpacker carries on. So I went to the only laundrette that was open in Montevideo, which wasn't too far away from the hostel. It was a self-service laundrette, and this is what it looked like. Now the only reason I'm mentioning it is because if anybody else uses this, there's so many rules. There was instructions in English that said you had to download an app, and then you had to put money onto the app, but you couldn't use any foreign bank cards. Then there's a separate one, rules for foreigners, that said you could pay by PayPal if you contacted them by WhatsApp. All I wanted to do was some washing. So in the end, it was easy enough, because to wash 195 pesos, to dry 195. I just saw someone in the laundrette and just said, "You speak English? Can I give you 200? Can you put the washing machine on for me?" So easy. It took about 2 hours in total. So if you are in Montevideo trying to save cash, then the self-service is cheaper than anywhere else. Right, I'm nearly at the next stop, and I'm here. Now, what I do like to do when I get to a big city is I'll try and find some sort of link between England and the city that I'm in, and I found this place online. This is, and it sounds a bit morbid, the British Cemetery. And I wouldn't have really come here, but this place is enormous. And from the looks of it, this is well looked after. Oh, there's some information over there. I might have a little wander. So I've just been in. They gave me a leaflet in Spanish, but it's got a QR code on the back, which is held. It'll be in English on there, and it's more of a sales plot to say, come and be buried in this cemetery. But it has got a little bit of history on it. It was opened up in 1828, just before independence, and there's a battle round here, Battle of Cardell, I think it said, where a few English soldiers had died. And in the 1830s, when Uruguay was getting its independence, the British really got involved in helping Uruguay, along with the trade. So there was a lot of British here. I'm just going to have a look at this guy here. Jenny Banks Coates, born in York, married in Mendoza, buried in the city 1921. So according to the website, there's 50 nationalities buried here, and it is the only private cemetery in Montevideo. So they're still selling plots, and there's a price list on here if you want to be interested. Wow. So Barbara Joan Lloyd, 2006. So it is quite recent, people. So right in the corner over there, as I was coming in, there was some gardeners looking after the place. So it is well maintained, but it's something I never thought I'd actually see. British cemetery in Latin America. And this looks like a place of worship, contemplation. Wow. So I've just been online just to try and find a little bit more about the British being in Uruguay, Montevideo. And basically, British merchants dominated the trade around the River Plate. You had British banks that was financing infrastructure for the country. You had British engineers which was helping build the railways. You had British ships using Montevideo as a key Atlantic port. And because there was a strong British community, they had schools, clubs and Anglican churches. Who knew? I didn't. But there is, as I said, other nationalities buried here. I've seen a few German, French, so a lot of Europeans. But it's mainly British. So I've just found this. Royston Grange, in memory of the crew and passengers who died 11th of May 1972. And Royston Grange was a British cargo ship who hit a tanker on the River Plate and caught fire, and everybody on board perished. And there's a list of all the names, and this is their resting place. I am glad I've come here. It's something different, and I think it's nice to honour British people who have died abroad, away from the UK. And behind me is just a memorial to Queen Victoria. But it's time to go somewhere else, somewhere different. So the next place is the City Hall. Now the reason I'm here is because I was told that you can go to the top to get a good view of the city, and it's free. At least I hope it is. So you've got to click on the QR code, and then on your phone it comes up with what day you want to go. So I've said today, what time's available. So I said 4 o'clock, which is in about 10 minutes. And then it comes up with lots of Spanish. So I'm going to ask her if she can help me. So I asked her and she just went, yeah, just go in. She said left. I'm seeing panorama, level 22. Oh, it's in English. Yeah, so I had phone, English. Yeah, just go in. Wow, you've got the full panoramic view of the whole of Montevideo. Wow. And then down there you've got some sort of beach. And as you go around there's just a little bit of information of what you can see with QR codes. Well, I've not been down there. And there's the River Plate. Well, that was interesting seeing the view from all the way up there, City Hall. But I'm now in front of the Museum of Art. It does look closed. Don't think I'll go in. Wow, it's so far up. I've had a good day. It's been a packed day. Stadiums, cemeteries, the lot. But now I'm going to head off back to the hostel. I'm still in Old Town. I will be moving to a new hostel on the other side of the city, somewhere that way. And I think it's time for some food. But if you've enjoyed this day, then all you got to do is press that like button. If you want to see more of Montevideo, then all you got to do is press that subscribe button. And don't forget to hype this video. But until the next time, bye bye for now.